my career by working on alternative development. I don't want to say how many years back, it's quite long. I think we've been talking about alternative, from the very idea, and it's become more real in the sense that people are practicing alternative development, alternative agriculture. We talk about sustainable development, organic agriculture for a decade before it can really take roots in reality. And today we are talking about alternative too, sustainability. And I feel that while listening to the macro analysis, I try to link this to, when talking about alternative, how maybe it's my own expectation that to mainstream alternative, looking forward how alternative can be mainstream, whether we can really push a new kind of economy. And I think maybe that's wrong. Maybe the more realistic is how alternative can be with the mainstream. I think up to now, I try to make sense of the financial crisis. It looked at the macro level as something very, deep crisis. But on the ground, I'm not sure how that related really to the ordinary community. I'm saying this because when Thailand faced the worst crisis, financial crisis, 1997, those who enter into the new market, invested in the stock market, white collar, failed, and affected badly. While people in the community were just looking at situation at the national level and perhaps regional level, and they doesn't seem to relate clearly. Of course, the price of the products may be affected, but the living condition, the subsistence level is still maintained, and people who are affected from the financial sector return to their community, to the province, and then get back to the basic. I'm saying that trying to find that instead of trying to change, the whole system, the three actors that we are referring to, the state, the market, and the people or the society. The state, should I be hopeful? The state is the least that change. It never transforms. It's very difficult to transform. Of course, it's still very important in regulate the market. But in the past 30 years, I find that state changed very little. Looking at the market has been so aggressive. It can never be reform itself. The two things, I think that we cannot deal with too much. So it's remained to the people sector, the society. In my past experience, I find that there are a lot of progress, a lot of development, learning, change, adaptation, so much. So I think I still believe in the free agent of people. And therefore, I think as long as they can exercise their own choice, doesn't matter which system we are in. That's my initial conclusion. I think that what is emerging as the critical issues is to link alternative with the mainstream. And I've been discussing with the case of Latin America, China, and also Southeast Asia. I don't know, I have to say something that coming in my mind, maybe with some other friends, is how can we create people's economy to be more visible? Maybe it's already visible, but I think it has to be articulated, and I don't mean institutionalize it, but somehow the link between the people's economy as alternative with the mainstream is something that we have to try to get a clearer idea, and that is real alternative in my opinion. So the last 2 days I'm grateful to Latin America friends and South-South Forum. I think I have learned a lot, that we have not really understood the system we are living in, really. And we have not paid attention to the theoretical thinking in linking with what reality is. And therefore, when we ask about, I think people refer to what is the theory of alternative. I'm not sure whether South-South Forum can create something out of, actually well, Kinchi had mentioned, another world is better, diversity and unity, and many other cliches that we're referring to. How can this be articulated? I remember that at one time socialism is, one clear alternative what to do. But after that, it doesn't seem to be clear. And the South-South Forum is already the 3rd time, right? And every time it's always enlightening, and there's always something new coming up. But whether we are moving towards making a theory of alternatives, how do we do that? I just want to leave by emphasizing that maybe we should not be too broad about our interaction. Maybe we should focus more on what really going on the ground, like people's economy, for example. The next, if we will have another South-South Forum, and create it as an alternative theory in between capitalism and socialism. Thank you.
Oh, thank you, Chung Tao, and thank you, Shantana. And I don't know whether you have taken notice of this hilarious joke just flashing across the screen. This is an advertisement. It's called, "What I do business virtually without an office." Then I said, oh, that's exactly what financial capitalism is doing. I'm doing with my office virtually without any business. And this is financial capitalism. Then I find it, wow, such a hilarious event happening in our forum. 本来应该我不敢讲的，因为今天戴老师讲那个宅男，我Taro，我是个大宅男，所以大家知道我是个大宅男，所以我不敢讲的。然后第一天可以不翻译这个开玩笑。第一天我讲这个 doomsday scenario， 然后哇 Petro 是很 pissed off， 然后就哇暴跳如雷，然后我又被训一顿，搞得我接下来几天我都不敢讲话了，乖乖坐在这里。然后但是监制还是让我讲，我就讲一下，没办法。So, well, during the lunch, a friend from mainland asked, "Oh, Everest, what is your direction of research?" Then I said, "Oh, I don't have any direction. It's actually a low direction." But actually, it's not true. For more than 30 years, since I I was a grad college student, or maybe since I was a boy, I am always puzzled by this idea. It's the idea of the inequality of wealth and power. And for these years, I want to understand why the inequality of wealth distribution and power is, is so persistent and so stubborn. It's such a long-lasting historical phenomenon. And of course, I want to look into the very detailed, delicate, and subtle mechanism of the reproduction of this inequality, both of wealth and power. I think it's easier for me to have the answer on the first part, the wealth distribution, which I refer to as the regime, the global regime of wealth concentration, which actually is also a global regime of domination and also a global regime of enslavement. I think we should dare to use the word enslavement, just as Marx in Capital referred to the condition of the working class during the 18th century. It's worse than slavery. So I won't use slavery, because slavery is, well, somehow it's connected with the slave trade in a very specific, historical period. But I would say enslavement. So the delicate mechanism, because I want to look into the delicate and subtle mechanism of the reproduction of equality, then I have to more and more be driven into the study of financial capitalism. How capitalism, and especially how financial capitalism now become the most delicate and subtle mechanism of this reproduction of inequality globally and of course locally both. And of course, or I can have a history. For example, I can say, okay, let's trace back to the origin of our history. When society become complex society, then we have some residual or surplus wealth. And more states remind us, the primitive community will always try to destroy all this surplus wealth, because they know very well that the accumulation of surplus wealth or surplus or residual wealth on a community level will lead to the inequality of power, which they are very sensitive because they don't want to accept any inequality between the community members. So they have to find a mechanism to destroy all this surplus wealth. Of course, some will say, oh, it's this idealized situation. Well, but we don't want to go into this debate. But I think it's generally true that with the division of labor and with the existence of this surplus wealth in society, and then we have the social hierarchy, we have the social division of labor, then we have all this inequality of the power. But we know that this regime of wealth concentration nowadays has become so successful and even so horrible to the extent that the existence of many life forms will be threatened. We know that exploitation in the classical Marxist sense actually is not the worst situation. If you are being exploited as a worker in the factory, then you still find a way to survive. But as Saskia Sassen, a Columbia professor of sociology, in her very interesting book called Expulsion, I think this is what could be identified as the global regime of wealth concentration. The most important mechanism now becomes the expulsion, to exclude you from the system itself. They don't even want to exploit you because you are such a rubbish. Because we know that, because in the morning we remember Professor Dai mentioned about the automation, the robot. Actually, this is more than a sci-fi scenario. Actually, it reflects deeply into our logic today. Because the the mechanism or the regime of wealth concentration is so successful that no elite actually needs only a small part of humanity. They don't need some servants, there's some soldier, someone to serve them. Then maybe they want a part of the population for consumption. Then they can use robots, they can use all kind of slave labor to support their privilege, just like the king and the aristocrat classes in the middle century. And then, from the other part, the majority part of the population actually is useless to them. That's horrifying me. That's really horrifies me. If they found this part of the population is still worth of being exploited, then they could still find a way to survive, or maybe a miserable subsistence. But the problem is the majority of the population is useless to so elites. So that's why we see that a majority, more and more, larger and larger part of the population is being excluded, both economically or in terms of social space. So we see Ecker here and Davis talking about the urbanism or the radical urbanism. So I find Ecker's yesterday presentation is very interesting. Actually, his idealism is to we occupy the center of the city. Actually, this is his message. But now we find this so idealistic because we know the real situation is the exclusion of the people from all the social space. Then, so exclusion in terms of social space, in terms of geographical space, and finally, in terms of biological sense, that means the total existential extinction. It's happening. So that's why I have to insist my doomsday scenario. I'm sorry, maybe I will piss Petro off again. But I mean, we are pointing toward the same direction. If Petro's optimism is motivating a part of the people towards the direction, which I think we are the same. I think his optimism will motivate a part of people, and maybe my doomsday scenario will motivate another part. Because my doomsday scenario is never meant to demoralize. I want to remind us that we have to get ready. I'd rather get ready than I'm wrong, than, oh, one day suddenly the worst scenario happened, then we are just found aghast and baffled and could do nothing at all. Especially after Judith's presentation. On that afternoon, my heart, it is such a heart-wrenching. I couldn't even talk. When I tried to, when the presentation is finished, I went to Judith, tried to talk with him. My voice just trembling. It's not because I'm an innocent boy, I never know this happened. Because since more than 40 years ago, when I was a boy, we have known very well that this tragedy, this humanitarian tragedy, happened again and again until nowadays. And the tragedy, the genocide happening in Sri Lanka is even not the worst in my life experience. But what makes me so saddened, so heart-wrenching, is that it's still here in the 21st century. In a globalized way, where we have all the global media of information, we're supposed to be enlightened with all the spread of this cultural study, all these things, but still it's happened. So I won't say genocide is a crap. It's happening every day, everywhere, on every scale. And this logic, we follow the same logic of this, what I call the regime of wealth concentration. So what to do if I say that I don't want to demoralize? And I have to thank you, Davis. Where's Davis? Davis has given a very good, a very cinematic. The vision is very clear. I think Davis did a really good job, and we don't have to do it again. So Davis was a very good vision. From here to Davis' vision. But we know that we have two directions. This is Davis' vision and the direction, what to do, the enemy, or who are we. A very good job, so we don't have to save us a lot of time and energy. But we know that there's another direction, the direction of the destruction. And of course, the problem is now we're heading this direction or heading this destruction. I would say, well, we will go vis-a-vis of the destruction than to diverse vision. I'm quite optimistic here because I believe that human civilization will always be there. Even life will always be in the planet, maybe for a million, at least 1,000 million years. Unfortunately, many life forms will extinct. Polar bear, bye-bye. Many species will bye-bye. But still, life forms will find a way to perish and find a way to flourish. Perish and we flourish again on this planet. I'm quite optimistic. So we may go through this cycle of destruction again and again and again. But someday, maybe some generation, they will be awakened. They know that, oh, our father, our stepfather, our grandfather are so stupid. They were morons, they are idiots. They cling to this stupid idea. Then one day they will be awakened. So they will move forward towards what Darwinists have sold, the vision we have sold us. So what to do? So I'll suggest something. This is my last part. I'm sorry if I'm too long. First, to clarify some very basic values. We know that in ethics, or maybe it should be in this market of knowledge, we also have this Grand Slam law. You know the Grand Slam law, the bad coins driving off the good coins. When there are many bad coins on the market, then gradually people will drawing off all the good coins, then the bad coin remain. Think about it, value is the same. If there are many bad values circulating on this knowledge market, on the political market, right-wing populism, xenophobia, all kinds of things, then good value will be driven off. This is called the Grand Slam law of what, I don't know. We'll call it Grand Slam law of cultural value. But the second part of this law actually is more interesting. People take away, withdraw the good coins, not to destroy them, but to keep them, to store the good coins. So I'm optimistic in a sense. I think now we have all the bad ideas, the xenophobism, the right-wing populisms, all kinds of things. But we have to insist on the good values. And to verify the good values, what is the content of the good value? We know that human beings actually, the history of human beings are driven by ideas. And in history, we have many, it's a history of coming up with more and better idea and ideal idea, like the idea of freedom, democracy, equality, like in the French Revolution, you know, the idea of equality, or fraternity, and freedom. But we also know that the elites are so good at appropriating this idea. As a cultural studies, as a scholar in cultural studies, we know very well that in the last 2 or 3 decades, we keep creating some good ideas, like local, like sustainable. All these ideas actually are first created by us. But now you can see how the World Bank, how the WTO, how the IMF, IMF appropriate all this idea to serve their elite agenda. All this supposed to be good idea. So my suggestion is, well, first of all, we have to really try to clarify this some very basic values, which I will call, we are making an arc of ideas. An arc, you know what is an arc? Fangzhou. Because we are facing a deluge, we are facing a mass, going to mass destruction. I hope we can avoid this, but I don't, well, maybe is it inevitable, but I don't know. But at least, we should at least build this arc of ideas to clarify this clearly. What is meant by freedom? Just like democracy is captured by this elite. Now the representative democracy actually becomes a system to serve the interests of the financial elites. So we have to see all this happening again and again and again in history. So first of all, we have to clarify some very basic idea of what is freedom, what is democracy, what is equality, what is love, what is compassion. So I'm in line with the Koji Karatani, Professor Koji Karatani of Japan. He's a great leftist intellectual. He suggests a universal and exchange model X and unknown. the university maybe this should be related to a kind of university, a universal religion. But I would like to put it in an ecological way. I would like to try to formulate some a universal religion, in a sense, but in the ecological terms. So my first suggestion, we have to go back to the very basic idea, basic values. We have to clarify it. What's the implication? And the second, but not last, actually, the problem is if we know that the mechanism of the reproduction of the inequality of power actually is for a kind of passive organization, I would say. In history, most of the time, unfortunately, most of the people are being organized passively. It's rarely in the case of history that people organize themselves actively or even proactively. But in most of the situations, they are being organized passively. If you are being organized passively, then you are bound to be enslaved. So we know that in history there are many forms of this passive organization, like tribe, like empire, like feudalism, all kinds of things. But of course, two of the most important forms recently is state and capital. And because the aim is the same, it's aimed at passive organization of people. So no wonder that state nationalism, as Professor Wen said, state nationalism or state socialism actually is the other phase of the state capitalism. Okay, I'm up with the first thing. If that is so, then we should find a way to organize ourselves beyond this state capitalism or state and capital. What to do? I have no roadmap. I have no plan. But what we know is we should treasure all kinds of alternative practice. Just as I say, if a person could keep his or her own piece of land, cultivate it, then feed his or her own family, then maybe one day it will be the smartest thing to do. So many stupid practices nowadays, or seemingly stupid or foolish nowadays, maybe one day will be the smartest things to do in human society. But that's not enough. Of course, maybe we have to go through a lot of destruction, this cell or this unit supply. But I don't care. I don't have any prediction for the future. It's open. But I know that no matter what we are facing ahead of us, how to build this self-organization, self or mutual cooperation, mutual aid, how to build many of these self in this society on different level, in different space, in different aspects. But the next step is, if they are isolated cells, if they are isolated units, then we could never transcend capitalism or transcend nation state. How to do so? How to make connection as much as possible. If you just build a commune or hide in a mountain, maybe you will survive the mass destruction one day, maybe. But it's not enough to transcend the afterworld after the destruction. After the destruction, it's again the same elite agenda, the same elite world, maybe in a more rigid way. I don't know, but at least if we can build up these cells of units of self-organization, mutual help, cooperation, then find a way to collect it into a very highly complex and network, and make it bigger and bigger and bigger. Then we don't have to talk about revolution. We don't have to talk about all the things, because we know that this is the failure of the Lenin avant-gardism. They believe that, if we can build an avant-garde party, we grasp the power, we take over the state, then we will give the power back to the people. But we know what happened. From Leninism, then we have Stalinism. So Mao Zedong actually, in my reading, is torn apart between these two different visions. So in him, we can see all the conflict of this socialist revolution of the last century. But anyway, if one day, this networking is getting bigger and bigger and bigger, I won't say one day they will overthrow all this, occupy all the social space. I won't say, but if one day they are powerful enough, or maybe they can at least compose of the half of the social base, then maybe someday the state and the capital will become, smaller and smaller, weaker and weaker. Then the market, I'm not saying that, okay, we should overthrow the market or overthrow the government, it's pointless. But we will say that one day, this government, state, or even market will be at service of this networking. And if one day this day comes, then we will say it may be the realization of communism, or it may be the realization of anarchism, or if you don't like the terms communism, maybe it's the realization of the common goodism. Why not? That's it. Sorry.
Maybe I can speak Chinese because it's a little long. Okay, please translate for me. Okay, thank you. 因为今天已经是第几天了，然后我第一天我捕捉到一个关键词是资本主义，然后第二天捕捉到一个关键词是中国，然后今天捕捉到一个关键词是悲观。然后，这是一个就是开玩笑，我希望就是说调整一下这个就是心情。但是我想分享两个这两天来这儿不同于这三个非常抽象的这个就是概念，甚至大家的谈论当中，中国也是抽象的哈。然后昨天晚上我们一起去严小辉的家里头，然后在非常繁华的。香港，然后我们自己去做传统的手擀面条，自己去和面、擀面，然后去煮，然后觉得比起吃西餐，然后还有很多非常美食，因为香港是美食天堂，但是对于我们来说，那个是非常非常幸福的，以至于昨天吃到今天早晨都没消化，这是第一个 first one。然后第二个是我这两天在这儿一直非常不舒服，就是因为。太过于消耗能源，在这里边冷到我一直哆嗦，所以我就试着走出去，然后我觉得外边阳光还可以，温度还即使是非常高了，但是要比起曼谷那些地方的话，还是要适宜人居住，让我觉得说，触摸真实的这个环境的时候，我才能找到真实的这个感觉，并不是在这个环境太过虚假了，就是没有一点点触感。然后第三个我想分享的一个感觉，就是我第一天来到香港的时候，我觉得4个字可以形容我的感觉，就水深火热。我到现在我都很想，我赶紧29号我要离开香港，回到中国西南的山部地区，因为觉得在所有大家的想象当中，就是没有一块是真实的，就是所有的这种建构。所以我觉得今天下午对我最大的一个感受，因为我们在谈另类的探索、另类的实践，但恰恰我们所有的都没有基于一个真实的另类探索的案例。所以我特别的呼吁很多小伙伴可以讲一下他们正在做的一些事情，真正的另类探索，然后去做一些这种对话，而不是因为我还很年轻，还很小。可以有这个，就是说希望的幻想，但是我所希望的幻想，如果说老师们说的，或者说我自己，因为也会思考这些，如果真的是像我们一样，气候全球变化，早晚哪一天海洋爆炸，然后或者说气候真的升高到10度，等等一系列问题，或者说资本主义泡灭，资本主义一直都存在，不只是今天这个几个时期，那我觉得人类所有都灭绝了，才是对这个自然，对这个。存在对这个几维世界存在最大的贡献，那我觉得我就可以非常 happy 了。所以我觉得我希望听到一些其他的案例，所以请小伙伴们可以去讲一下，而不是继续让脑袋去打结。谢谢，表达一下我的感受。
Thank you. Please keep your response brief and short. Okay, anyone? Any questions or any comments? Okay, yes, please.
Yeah, I'm telling you one story. Last year, I visited indigenous people in Dorados, a city in Matadushu. The indigenous people is called Guarani. My friends from MST Landless Workers Movement and also the church group called SIMI, S-I-M-I. They organized a field trip to there, and I also joined the field trip. And what I saw is really upsetting me because it recalls me what I read about the, it's written by Galeano, The Open Wings of Latin America. So I couldn't believe even in 21st century, the indigenous people still facing the question of life and death. And, but I don't feel depressed because I feel anger, and I also want to do something for them because we are too privileged to talk about depression because they don't have any water, electricity, and also they confront the threats from the police, from the corporate power, and from the army and employed by the landlord. So what's surrounding them are the sugarcane field and also the soybean. So they talk about their struggles. They talk about the murders of their family. So they organize a kind of ritual to pay respect to the dead, including their children and also family member. So after that, what's the impact on me is still going on. I couldn't, in my bottom of heart, it's too shameful for me to talk about depression because we still have water, we still have food, and then, what we need to do actually, how we can turn our privilege into productive work and also collective work to serve for this unprivileged and also for the poorest of the poorest. And their problems always neglected by our society and also by our, of course, the knowledge system. What we have to do actually is to continue the struggle and to work for them. Thank you.
非常感谢今天的这些老师给我们带来的这些启发。然后我也想分享一点简单一点，我是想表达一下乐观，就是因为我们就简单讲一下我过去10多年的一些所经历过的一些事情。为什么我会觉得从我经历的事情里面，我会有一些会有乐观的感觉，会越来越乐观。因为我们是在中国大陆，大概是在2000年左右，就有很多这种青年大学生，当时是很自发的要去农村去帮忙做一些调研、支农和维权。然后这个事情其实我们一直到05年的时候，就是2005年的时候，开始其中有一批人是很就是在他们大学毕业了，然后会很自发的留下来，想去做一个有点类似乌托邦的这种青年公社。其实这个从05年我们一直做了10年，算是一个终结。这10年中，我觉得我们是讨论和借用过很多传统的一些思想里面的资源。我们讲过新文化，讨论过五四，也讨论延安的那些精神和做法，还有总之很多吧。当然也有包括切格瓦拉的故事，我们还唱他的歌等等。所以这10年中，我们做这样一个青年公社，但是最后我们都瓦解了，最后都分散到，就是说 可能温老师经常会批评我们说，你们是一帮年轻的小子，然后我们真的是10年过来我们也承认了，因为我们最后是真的就瓦解掉了。我们在北京的那个青年公社，虽然那个大院子还在，但是我们10年来，这其中的人已经，从最初很有理想，要去做一些改造社会、改变世界的这些讨论和想法，到后来，我们基本上都走没了，但是就是这样一个过程，我自己有很多痛苦的经历，甚至有时候会很绝望，但我们一直坚持到，后来只有很少数的人留下来，然后我们会把我们的这个青年公社后来搬到农村里面去了，就完全是由北京这个大国际大都市的郊区，后来就直接我们把它搬到中西部的农村里面去了。所以我们从第11年开始到现在是第12年，虽然这第2个10年我们只开始了2年，但是我觉得我们这样一个选择是对的。当我们搬到那个农村里去的时候，我们发现我们加入进来的年轻人比以前更多了，并且这一次我感觉我们这样一个做法里面没有再多以前更多的那种很意识形态的争论和分歧。当然很多争论分歧，我们以前背后有很多可能是各种利益的矛盾，或者说等等其他的，但是我们现在我觉得我很高兴看到说我们新加入了很多，就反而是没有这些负担，一些思想的或者理念的负担，并且我也很乐观的是感觉我们这种加入的人是在呈那个更大的速度在变多，并且我们在全国一直维持的200-300个大学生的支农社团，一直在跟他们去维持联络。10几年来，每一年都不间断要去给他们做交流会，去做工作坊，去做培训。然后今年我们同时在7个地区也在做，有7个地区都会向全国招募大学生来讨论和下乡。所以，其实我在想，就是或许现在正是因为这样一个危机太严重，所以对中国这样一个13亿人口，然后每年有700万大学生毕业这么一个状态，会有更多的青年知识分子、青年学生，他们真的可能会来有一些改变。因为这个改变，或许在现在这样一个互联网的时代，不需要那么像传统那样，你要去印一个传单、印一个小册子去宣传、去传播，希望更多人知道。我觉得现在就不需要这样，现在可能是当你在一个地方有一些尝试，这样一个尝试，它可以是很美好的，然后很容易就通过这个互联网时代可能会被很多人知道，所以这个东西是一个慢慢积累的，也许它到哪一天它会成一个爆发式的这种扩散和增长，所以我想是表达一下，我觉得对未来我们还是应该可以很乐观，谢谢大家。
Thank you. Any response or if you don't have further response to the previous sessions, we can move on to the next part. Okay, the reflections and projections. Because in this part we have five speakers. Well, and then also you are welcome to join the discussions after their brief reflections and projections.
Well, I think that I can be brief because I have spoken enough during those days. And also what we heard from Kinshi just a little while ago was, I think, a very good synthesis of what we have heard and achieved during those days. I just want to say 3 things. The first one is that we assist, as a matter of fact, to perhaps, we hope, a last victory of capitalism. And that is the victory on the progressive movements, governments, and parties, which are still advocating a very anti-capitalist discourse and at the same time promoting capitalist policies. So we hope that is the last victory of capitalism. But it is a reality. A friend of mine who is a member of the government of Ecuador was invited to the Communist Party Congress here in China just a few weeks ago. And I saw him when he came back, and he told me what I heard there. It is a repetition and repetition and repetition of an anti-capitalist discourse. But is that corresponding to the reality? So that is the first consideration. The second one is that we have all over the world initiatives which are going in another way. Perhaps they are not full revolutionary initiatives, but they are steps which are building a new logic of the organization of the world. And that is extremely important because there are initiatives of social movements, of organizations, of groups of people all over the world building new values, building society on other principles than capitalism. And that is a fact. And I think we have to be present in all those initiatives. I think in particular to many aspects, like, for example, peasant agriculture. How to reorganize peasant agriculture based on peasant initiatives. I think to other initiatives like reforestation initiatives. I think to a country like Capo Verde, which during 15 years and even more did not have any rain because of deforestation. And with a national effort of reforestation, they have been able to get again the rain and to develop the country in another way than before. So those are concrete realizations which are going against the logic of capitalism. I think to the social economy, and based more on solidarity. I think to the possibility of a new vision of urbanism, and we had some aspects of that during this conference. I think to the vision of human rights, not only as individual rights, but as collective rights, and as a real social struggle. The human rights is not something which is falling from the heaven. It is a social conquest, and there are many efforts along that line. And I think finally of the holistic vision of reality, how to rebuild a holistic vision of reality with the different ways that I made, that I have spoken before today. So those are just examples. And that is going on all over the world. And I think we have to be active in those initiatives, knowing what they mean for a fundamental transformation of society, not just as individual initiative. But it is true also that just the addition of local initiative will never change the fundamental structure of the capitalist system. So it is not enough, and we must be conscious of that. It is not the addition of individual initiatives or of local initiatives which will transform the fundamental system. So my third consideration is we have also to work at the macro level. And the macro level is, of course, extremely important because they are constructing the pillar of the whole organization. And we have, from that point of view, the duty of continuing to delegitimize capitalism. But to delegitimize capitalism in order, of course, to construct another type system of values which can reorganize precisely a collective life of humanity on Earth. And doing that, we have to delegitimize not only the effects or the defects of capitalism, and that is what is done by many instances. The social democrats, they are criticizing capitalism because of its effects. The famous social doctrine of the church, of the Christian churches, are also very strongly anti-capitalist. But they are anti-capitalist because of the social effects of capitalism. But they are not criticizing the logic of capitalism. And we have to go that step over, to criticize capitalism not just in its bad effects, social effects, but in its fundamental logic. And that is the difference, for example, in Christianity between social doctrine of the church and liberation theology. And that is the difference also between a social democratic type of analysis of society and a more fundamental socialist or communist analysis of society. So on the macro level, we have to continue to delegitimize capitalism, not only in its effects, but in its logic. And therefore, of course, continue to propose new steps. And I spoke about common good of humanity. Like I said before, it is just a name. The important thing is what is the content of such a concept, which is of course absorbing and bringing together the idea of the defense of the commons, of what are common goods, what are public services, etc. The defense of the idea of common good, which is an old idea since Aristotle and the Greek philosophy. And going further to the concept of what I have called the common good of humanity, which is a paradigm of life against a paradigm of death. So we have to build that. And to bring that in the international instances. The United Nations is perhaps like Descoto said to Father Descoto, who was the president of the Assembly General of the United Nations about in the years 2008, 2009. He said the United Nations are irreformable. It is impossible to reform them. But it is the only instrument we have. So that is also an instance where the presence is absolutely necessary. And not only the United Nations in New York, but in all the instances of collective international instances, like some of the social movements are doing, like La Via Campesina that I told you about, has been present, for example, in Hong Kong, when there was the famous meeting of the World Trade Organization. And to be present in all those instances, to bring about precisely the criticism of the logic of capitalism, and to bring, of course, new ideas for the reorganization of the world. So the two levels seems to me possible, and not only possible, but they are existing. And we should, as activists, as intellectuals, intellectual activists, as members of social movements, etc., we should be present. At the same time, at the local level, at the national level, the political level, or social movements level, and at the same time also not forgetting the international dimension, where also some steps can be achieved. And if we have that kind of perspective, I think we have a tremendous agenda of action before ourselves.
I would like to start again thanking King Chi and her team for the invitation. And I believe that by itself, this possibility, I think that by itself, this possibility is an anti-systemic effort. The conversation, the dialogue among peoples is one of the best antidotes against chagrin, against sadness, against loneliness, and against desperation. And I'm not talking about I'm not talking about a naive optimism. With Gramsci, the pessimism of the reason and the optimism of the will. As always, I'm countercurrent, and I assume that because of this, my time is going to be very short. But don't worry. If you are interested in some things that I have to say and to argue with facts, because the rest is just illusions and self-inflicted demoralization, I assume that we have still some time to discuss some facts like this. For example, I don't know if you can see back there, but those are the statistics about dead people during wars, the 40s, the 50s, the 60s, until today. And it is not true that things are as worse as ever. That is pure ideology. It is not true that it is the same slavery than capitalism. Why don't you ask the people that fought the Civil War in the United States? It is not true. There are some sense in history. Of course, there are advances and retreats. But life is not nonsense. People is the unique. Is not only the summit of the biosphere, Francois, is the noosphere. That means the intentional life. And people is the intentional life. The possibility of culture defines the possibility of being immortal, being transcendent. So we are not a kind of victim of destiny. We have to take care of our destiny. And you know, if tomorrow the world comes to an end, be it, what can you do? We are talking about agency. Be in peace with your gut, with your conscience. Huh? And if the world comes to an end the next year or in 10 years, and there is no possibility to change this, what can we do? Of course, we can stop the possibility of again having 200 million deaths like what Wade and me were discussing early this afternoon. But we need to find the scientific conditions for that. And in order to stop this type of abomination, this kind of ignominia, we need to be pragmatical. We need to deploy not only cries and lamentations, but to deploy a political agenda. To construct, being very rigorous and responsible, to construct which are the real conditions that could change the balance of power that is leading the world to that precipice. Okay, the first thing that we must know is that we are the majority. We are talking, I presented, and it is not me, it's Thomas Piketty has been mentioned this afternoon. or this morning, sorry. He has shown with the statistics, the official statistics of almost all the countries, that it is not the 1% against the 99%. That is an exaggeration. It's the 0.000000001% against 7.3 billion people. So please, I think it's a matter of irresponsibilization to say there is nothing that we can do. On the contrary, of course that this is a very harsh task. Of course that this is plenty of tensions. Of course this is plenty of conflicts, even with the French kimchi. Because we have to dispute inch by inch, day by day, a horizon of dignity and fraternity. And we need to build up the conditions to sum up all the people, the 7.3 billion people, in an endeavor that could stop the agenda of war, chaos, and civilization degradation, like the speculative capital is proposing today. And that requires scientific efforts. For example, how to avoid division. I agree plenty with what Davis was saying this afternoon about Bandung. Great. You have there the principles of respect to the dignity of every people in the world and the possibility of international peace for centuries. That is going beyond the 1648 Treaty of Westphalia that created the foundations for international law. Yeah, great. But if you include the problems of religion, of course that you are plowing the field in order to have more wars. And I'm talking about this here in China, where at the summit of the accumulation of forces during the 50s and the 60s of the anti-capitalist project, you have, because of secondary contradictions, you destroy that possibility and you give in a silver plate the possibility of triumph to imperialism. And I'm talking here in Asia, where because of the nitty-gritties about my definition of socialism, my definition of revolution, because I'm the purest, because I'm the most revolutionary, because nobody is to the left of me, myself. But vanity, because of this, you had genocides. Once and again. So we must be very rigorous. We have a responsibility, even here in this room, to build up the theoretical, the axiological, and the operative conditions to build up the future. And you know, we don't have, as you mentioned, we don't have the right to be demoralized. We don't have the right to be desperate. We have the responsibility because we are privileged, because we have education, because opposite to the majority, still the majority of the people in the world, we have tertiary education. That's a privilege. And we must use our privilege from any discipline in order to build up solutions. Not solutions in terms of production, not solutions in terms of money, not solutions in terms of consumism. Solutions in terms of dignity. For the people, as Chantana says, I don't care if this is called capitalism. I don't care. What I think it is important is for every single human being. This is the time for every single human being to have room to realize himself or herself. For every single human being to grow up as a human being. To build up a horizon, to give to her or his relatives or children the possibility of going further in the construction of a utopia. I don't want to find the utopia. I don't want to reach the utopia. That is for further generations. I don't want to condemn my children to find utopia. I like for them to follow the path of truth, dignity, hope, and the construction of a much more fraternal world. If this is called capitalism, I don't care. I want to avoid more war because this is ignominia, this is iniquity. And we have the power to stop it. We did it, you know. And I'm talking for the very tiny country called Ecuador. And let me tell you a secret. Because in Ecuador, if you are willing to find the socialism of the 21st century, be frustrated from the beginning. Because you know, Ecuador is a capitalist country. But you know, we are talking in China, and China is also a capitalist country. Please do not live in illusions. Do not fool yourself. But in Ecuador, the very tiny country in Latin America, we expel the military base of the United States. Yeah. Let's do the same in the rest of the world. In the very capitalist and underdeveloped country of Ecuador, that is still an extractivist country because 40% of the fiscal GDP belongs to oil revenues, we stopped for 7 years the exploitation of the most important reserves, trying to bet to the rest of the world the possibility of keeping the oil under the soil and to have another horizon. And we call for the truth, for transparency, and we had an audit of the external debt, and we erased 30% of the GDP because of the way in which we treated the external debt. And we put 20% of the space of the Coca-Cola and the Pepsi-Cola and the beers for products of the popular economy. That's capitalism, of course. But do you understand what that means for the psychology of the people, for the self-esteem of the people that looks at the mirror, and after generations of cultural bombarding, they believe that they are looking shit because they are not Brad Pitt or Angelina Jolie. Yeah, that's the dignity that we can build up. And that requires a lot of effort, theoretical effort, axiological effort, operative effort. And I'm sure that these little steps could build up the possibility of a global alliance for peace, prosperity, dignity for everybody. Let's build that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Pedro. Okay, our next speaker is Lee Jong-ho.
Sorry to speak after such an eloquent speaker, but I want to share my reflections after participating in South-South Forum. So first, because I try to usually in my university, usually the leaders usually emphasize crisis when they do want to some kind of when they try to push unwelcome administration policy, restructuralization, they usually emphasize crisis. So I don't like a crisis, then some kind of crisis emphasis too much. It is related with some kind of other political agenda usually. So sometimes too much illusion disguided us also. So somewhat realistic vision, which we should purposefully created. That was I thought. And one thing I found very realistic vision, I did found from Kinchi, and also those who came from rural reconstruction movement, because when we started our arena, we always think about construct Asian thought by Asians. So also try to develop social movement theory based on our own movement experiences. So we always talk about that kind of necessities, but nobody dared to jump into that kind of work because it was not evaluated within the university. And the students also try to follow more luxurious Western ideology, whether it is Marxism or not. So in that sense, it is very, starting from a very bottom-up period, especially in competitive academic society, for the professor to jump into that kind of courageous academic trial, it is almost impossible. We know the normative necessities, but no one dared to jump into that kind of experiment. But through this third South Forum, I saw the publication of MP's book. So we barely know about the Indian social movement history. Even we don't know about, we know only Gandhi through his Indian money. So, and also we don't exactly know, because we are divided by Cold War framework, we don't know exactly what has happened inside of China. Because the world is some kind of, it's a certain way centered. So our knowledge is usually produced by centered way. So it is. I think it is one revolutionary step also to starting that kind of book project. It is the first one, and the Muto's one. I really try to his book to be published for our hands, because we don't know about Japanese intellectuals trying to build something within that very fascistic framework. So those kind of, I think, experimental approach is a hope for us. Because when I very carefully listened to Fta for three in-depth lectures, one thing I found that he has emphasized very much the critical intellectual's role and the role of social movement. So I think that is the basic, some kind of hub for us to build our alternatives. Then first starting with the critical intellectuals is one of the very valuable asset for us. So in that sense, I was deeply moved with Erasmus and Eka and the young generation, who are also not observed by existing framework. So they try to their own journey, which was not fully guided, but they are there to start that journey. So I see a lot of hope on that sense. And also another hope I found through this meeting is that I met PK and many of Kinchi's colleagues, but surprisingly they became farmers. So it is unimaginable new experiment also. Not only they theoretically analyze, but also they practice themselves by their own feet and arms. So I think that was also one thing very strikingly hopeful for my participation. So, and for us usually for Korean activists, China always a kind of dream or hope who made their own journey starting from the non-Western country to so build their own republic, People's Republic. So that is our some kind of model country in a certain way. But still, the Daijinhua was very reflective on their own achievement. So I think that was also not take pride in itself, so she's very reflective on their journey. So that was also, I think it is quite hopeful in certain way. And also another thing, so many of the new generation, because they didn't experience the Cold War framework and the trauma. Still, there are some Sri Lanka Tamil victims, but we sitting in this place, we are not that. I also coming from post-war generation, post hot war within Cold War framework, so I didn't have that such a tragic trauma. So, but new generation who are relatively well educated, but they want to go further for the more victimized people. So I think that was also hope. So recently, most of the people in Korea thought we are going to we have no hope, but slightly the young people use their Facebook and use their SNS messages, so they jumped into the election, and the result of election quite the no political scientist can expect the opposition party victory, but it is they got won with the youth participation with big margin. So something, those kind of unexpected thing has happened. So I think the sometimes we can use the sometimes the state can be a useful tool. So we need not give up the role of the state. So in that sense, some kind of retaming state for our own purpose, and we not only against the privatization, but how to socially relevantly regulate the public asset is also we should think about. The last one, because you raised the question about the concrete cases. Recently, we have published one book in Korean, but the Korean activist life is very tough usually. But they started as a student activist and then labor activist. Now they became some kind of cooperative activist. So during those kind of tough period, there is a big fire without any money. So they almost got disappear. But all the people thought we are still alive. So they gathered the big money, so much more than the loss. So now they have 200,000 membership. So they build up their own people's economy and very awakened consumers. So they become the big challenge to the existing market. So that kind of, we didn't expect that kind of unintended, we didn't plan the certain success, but we follow the politically, socially, ethically correct way. But sometimes it gives us some unexpected, unintended result. I think that is the journey of our life. Again, I think I feel I was so fortunate to attend this meeting, especially François, because I listened to his lecture very carefully, and there are so many insights he really want to convey to our next generation. So thank you for all.
Thank you, Joe. And our next speaker is 戴锦华。
有点害怕了哈，就是最后一个发言，不知道后来是不是我们现在是不是有一点像是那个演讲比赛或者是煽动比赛哈？我是很会煽动的，我从17岁的时候就开始煽动哈，而且是站在天安门广场上煽动。那个时候的听众是成千上万人，而且成千上万的人跟我一起唱国际歌。但是我年纪越大，我越警惕煽动，我不想煽动，不想通过感染大家的情绪来达到什么目的，因为我觉得我们今天要投身到一个小边缘的、支流的不一样的斗争当中的时候，我们要警惕欢心症 哈，就我们警惕廉价的乐观，我们也要警惕悲情啊，弄得我们好像我们很悲惨，我们很悲壮，我们在做出伟大牺牲。我们做这个选择是因为我们愿意，是因为我们高兴，是因为我们快乐。所以我觉得问题不在于悲观乐观，问题在于你为什么而悲观，你面对什么悲观，你面对什么乐观，你的悲观的依据是什么，你的乐观的依据是什么？因为如果说我们的愿景是一个共产主义的，是一个为人的、为人民的，那么我们必须准备不光是长期的斗争，而且大概是要几代人的生命去铺出我们的道路。如果你乐观的是资本主义，那就别坐在这里了哈。就是资本主义有很多很多的大门，有很多很多的梯子，你去爬吧，你被别人蹬下来，你就认倒霉吧。但是如果你认定资本主义的船要沉掉，你的悲观是因为这个世界正在被资本主义带向灾难的话，那么我还要补充一点你的悲观，因为我一直说今天的世界像一艘泰坦尼克号，当它入水的时候，3等舱先进水，一定是穷人，一定是穷国，一定是弱势群体最先在这个灾难的过程当中被牺牲。但是当你看到这样的一种所谓悲观的前景的时候，就需要更多的行动，就需要更多的斗争，就需要让更多的人能够脱离这样的一个滨海沉船的时候最先被牺牲、最先被抹除、最先被淹死的这样的命运。所以我觉得这个时候不是一个讨论情绪上的悲观和乐观，不是一个看谁有更强的激情，或者是有更高的嗓门，或者是有更华丽的辞藻。请你们相信，我真的非常会做这件事。可是我不想做这件事，我也不想在这儿分辨或者悲观或者乐观主义。我只想说，今天我们需要更冷静的，我们需要更从容的、更平常心的集聚，让我们集聚在一起，分享一切，从手擀面到理想，从行动到思考，因为我们非常非常少，我们的人非常非常少，因为我们不足以和这个资本的所造成的巨大的摧毁或者巨大的建设相对抗。换句话说，我们有充分的理由乐观，因为10年前我们不敢想象中国具有今天的世界地位。但是我们有十足的理由可以悲观，因为13亿中国人口加入了全球资本主义的过程。我曾经对着几千个西方主流学者说，我们中国从来没有原创任何资本主义的灾难，但是因为我们的加入，资本主义的灾难被成百万倍的放大了，变得可见了。那么换句话说，我们作为当代中国人，我们作为当代中国人当中有自觉的做出另类选择的人们，我们有责任承担起这个历史转折关头的更重大的责任。所以不光是对中国的，也可能是对世界的。我确实不担心人类会生存下去，但是我反复强调，到底它是作为一个种群生存下去，还是作为一个社群生存下去？人类生存下去究竟以什么样的东西为代价？开玩笑的说，我突然意识到，在我有生之年，我已经目睹了一个大帝国叫做苏联的消失。而苏联消失的7年，苏联解体7年之后，俄国的人均平均寿命下降了15岁。你们知道在这个过程当中多少底层人付出了他们的生命？所以我也开玩笑说，也许我们还有机会目睹大英帝国解体。如果苏格兰脱英，那么也许我们看到大英帝国就完蛋了。但是我们正在经历着无数多的包围着中国的、联系着中国的我们的内部的灾难。 和我们内部的威胁，我们准备好了吗？悲观是不足以为训的，乐观也不要廉价。我觉得凭着我们的心，凭着我们的头脑，凭着我们的集结，南南会议最大的意义就是让亚非拉的国家互相看见，让亚非拉的经验互相传递，让我们觉得不孤独。但是一次再一次的我们发现我们不孤独，但是我们各自陷在我们的艰难的现实环境当中，我们缺少一种真正能够分享、能够共享的理论行动。但是至少我们相互连接，我们相互支持，我们相互认知，我们在这样的一个相互的精神的连接和鼓舞当中走下去。也许我们消失了，这个主流世界连知道都不知道，但是也许有一天是我们终结他们。谢谢大家。
Thank you, Chung. In fact, I'm not a speaker. I think just being invited by Kinchi to say a few words at the end of this wonderful conference on behalf of the department. Now I'm the acting head, acting for 1.5 months, which is the part I hate most. I mean, in my academic career, I mean, doing this administrative duty. But I think I have to do it, and somebody has to do it. And one of our colleagues, she left us last year. She was the former chair professor of the department, Professor Megan Morris. She edited a book with another colleague called Meta Hawk. The title of the book is called Academic Activism, Creativity and kind of like social movement. In the book, she advocates we have to do this administrative duty creatively in order to create space, new space for academic setting, to do something more meaningful than the existing one. I think in the past 2-3 days, we are going along this spirit. It's difficult, but we have to work within the existing constraint and context in order to create something new out of it. And I find it amazing. I mean, I have heard, although I mean, I must confess, I couldn't participate in all the sessions due to partially, I mean, this administrative duty and partially other engagement. But I still find it amazing. I have learned a lot from the speaker, telling us stories and also theoretical reflection from different contexts. I just want to add one minor thing at the end of this conference, which is I completely agree with some of the speakers on the stage and also on the floor, talking about the necessity of building up dialogue and solidarity among intellectual activists in the Southern context. Engaging in dialogue have to build on certain conditions, I think, especially constructive dialogue among people from different contexts, which is a very difficult task. I also agree with Petro. He was insisting that we have to discuss based on fact or empirical information. Now, one of the conditions of engaging in constructive dialogue, I believe, has to do with we have to find some common ground or some common base of collective knowledge production process. One of the founder of cultural study in the United States, Lawrence Grossberg, he just lately published a book entitled "We All Want to Change the World." I mean, this is the title of the book. Of course, it's borrowing from John Lennon's one of the lyrics. In the book, he mentioned we have been encountering two contemporary contexts, which is very difficult to address, but it's very crucial. The first context has to do with the term he called it as the crisis of knowledge, by which he means we are now entering into a phase in which it's difficult to find common base for knowledge production. Now we have too many different empirical facts. We have too many different information. We have too many even theoretical framework. And it's difficult to find this commensurability among these different facts, different theoretical framework. So in order to building up a collective effort or knowledge building process, it takes time and patience for people to come together to find way to reconstruct the possibility of common value or common ground in order to communicate. I mean, this is the first condition. I think it's very important for continuing this South Forum. But he also mentioned another very important context, which he called it as the organization of pessimism, and that we have been talking about today. He was talking about this structure of feeling or affective context in which pessimism become predominant in the contemporary world. At least, I mean, in some of the Anglo-Saxon countries like the United States, and I must say it may be also true in Hong Kong and mainland China, the prevalence of pessimism as the dominant emotion. Now, the second condition I want to put on the floor has to do with in order to have a more fruitful and productive collaboration in terms of production of common knowledge, to do with to find a way to overcome this organization of pessimism or the problem of this structure of feeling or emotion. Now, as we all know, I mean, in order to communicate constructively, I mean, we have to share similar passion, hope or despair, but at least we have to understand each other's emotional feeling deeply, which is again very difficult. I mean, it takes time and it needs to work it out collectively. Now, only 2-3 days, I think it's just the beginning, if we can call it the beginning. Of course, I mean, it already built on the last two South Forum, but still, I mean, we still have a lot of gap to bridge. One of the things, perhaps, I mean, we have to read each other's work more detailedly and also systematically. And in fact, I must confess again, I mean, I haven't read Pedro's work before this meeting, and also that's the first time I listened to Professor Holter's wonderful lecture. I must confess, I mean, if I can heard it earlier, then I can prepare much better and for this collective effort in building up common knowledge. But I mean, it's not too late. If we can find a way to conduct conference or seminar by building on this collective reading, collective communication in other forms, not necessarily coming together in the same room. I mean, we can still continue this dialogue in various forms. And also, I mean, with the trust and impassion that we feel, I mean, although we have disagreement and we have serious disagreement on certain political judgment and also political stand, but that's normal and that's fine. It doesn't necessarily involve in as an obstacle of communication. If if we have a mutual trust and understanding that this difference is based on our different historical path, historical development, and historical context, and that constrain our emotion and our way of speaking, our mode of presenting. But again, it takes time and energy. I mean, so I hope in the future, and we take build on this three South Forum, can continue the dialogue in different forms, different way, with this mutual trust and shared emotion, be it optimistic or pessimistic, it doesn't really matter. Then I really trust, I mean, we can create something different in the future. So lastly, I must say, although I'm speaking on behalf of the Cultural Department, but all the work that have been done to make this conference actualize has to be going to Kimchi and her team. I mean, they have done a lot in the past few months and weeks, handling almost everything, which is tremendously difficult and sometimes it's quite unimaginable, but still, I mean, they overcome all these hurdles. So may I invite you to join me to thank all of them, Kimchi's team, for bringing us this wonderful moment, and I hope in the near future we can come together in one way or the other and continue this constructive dialogue. Thank you very much.